Welcome to the American Idiots Podcast, the show where we take the hottest topics currently dividing our country and we debate them with our diverse group of hosts. So sit back and strap in, as for the next 2 hours we leave no story undebated and no politician will be spared. It's the American Idiots Podcast live on Podcast Network 49, and it begins right now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the American Idiots Podcast. I am Money Mike. Going to be joined pretty quickly here by the Manic Hispanic. We got a lot to get to. It's been a wonderful couple of weeks in the news, depending on how you look at it, I guess. Of course, I want to let you know, if you are watching us on Facebook, feel free to comment below, like the page, share the page, all that good stuff. On YouTube, if you're watching, like the page, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff, so that you can make sure to stay updated. And of course, if you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all that good stuff, feel free to leave us a 5-star review if you would. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and bring on the return of the Manny Hispanic. Manny Hispanic, how you doing this week?
I'm doing wonderful this week, Mike. My wife and I decided to take some vacation time. We went out of state. So I am coming from Tennessee.
Okay.
Tennessee and Georgia kind of bouncing back and forth right now.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you're in that part of Tennessee. So you're off in the extreme eastern part.
Right now we're staying in just outside of Chattanooga.
Okay, nice. By the way, gotta ask, because I notice on the old AC unit over there, are you like airing out your shoes or something?
Yeah, it rained last night while we were out, so I was like, try to get them dry as quick as possible.
Right. Nothing worse than wet feet and wet socks. I can tell.
It does suck. It was Sunday night. We were supposed to go to a comedy place. Well, I say we were supposed to go. We found out there was a live comedy bar, and we were going to go check that out. So, like a minute, well, maybe 30 seconds after leaving the car, the bottom fell out. So we started getting rained on, and we had to make our way all the way around the building. It's there where the Chattanooga Choo Choo Museum is. A historical area, and we get all the way over there and they're closed. So, yeah, that one sucked. So then we had to try to figure out, did we want to try to go back immediately through the pouring down rain, because it was really coming down, or just sit there. So we had a couple of drinks, sit there for a little bit, waited for it to slow down.
Well,
yeah,
at least you got a couple drinks out of it.
Yeah, we're gonna finish here, and then we're going to Tybee Island.
Ooh.
On the coast there. So
All
the way back, we will hit the Mississippi. Basically, what we thought we would do is go check out all of these Civil War places, before the people get all up in arms, and try to have all those tore down.
Right. That would be cool. And that's a time period in America that is very, very fascinating to me. So definitely that would be awesome to do. Okay, speaking of stuff, let's go ahead and get into it. COVID spikes are returning to the news cycle, and we have a story from WKMG News on COVID.
A new warning when it comes to a certain strain of coronavirus known as the Delta variant. Officials now say it's the dominant strain in the country, making up half of the new cases. It comes as experts say the number of cases nationwide is up by 9%. President's once again urging those who have not been vaccinated to do so, saying his administration will continue door-to-door outreach in areas with low vaccination rates.
Study after study after study has shown that since early May, virtually every COVID-19 hospitalization and death in the United States has been among the unvaccinated. God bless you all, and please please get vaccinated. It makes a big difference.
And the president's latest plea comes after the nation missed his administration's goal to vaccinate 70% of adults by July 4th.
Okay, so let's go ahead.
Hold on. Before we go there, would you play that again? I was wanting to cue in on something he said specifically.
Okay, let's go through it again.
A new warning when it comes to a certain strain of coronavirus known as the Delta variant. Officials now say it's the dominant strain in the country, making up half of the new cases. It comes as experts say the number of cases nationwide is up by 9%. President's once again urging those who have not been vaccinated to do so, saying his administration will continue door-to-door outreach in areas with low vaccination rates.
Study after study after study has shown that since early May, virtually every COVID-19 hospitalization and death in the United States has been among the unvaccinated. God bless you all, and please get vaccinated. It makes a big difference.
And the president's latest plea comes after the nation missed his administration's goal to vaccinate 70% of adults by July 4th.
Okay, were you able to catch what you needed?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about exactly what the president said there. He said study after study has shown that the cases are among the unvaccinated, and the deaths are among the unvaccinated.
That was the part I was trying to clue in on. I was thinking he gave a percent, but he didn't give a percent. He said almost every.
Right.
The fact that they are not willing to throw numbers down on this really cracked me up.
It's very interesting to me. So I do know that what the media is reporting as far as our local numbers go, I do see certain, like I shared one with you earlier, a gentleman in Texas, I believe, it was fully vaccinated, and right now he's fighting for his life in the hospital with the Delta strain of the coronavirus. And I'd sit there and I watch the president and the way his body language. I do believe that the president thinks that this vaccine is helping. I guess I do believe that that's the information being presented to him. But a lot like Bush with Iraq, I don't think they're telling the president everything.
Right.
I think he's being led to a conclusion that they want him to get to, which once again isn't necessarily me talking about the coronavirus or the vaccine. I got vaccinated. I felt terrible after the second dose. We've talked about all of this.
Right.
I'm to the point where I believe that the vaccine is effective against the COVID-19 that we know, even though we don't fully know it yet. I believe that it may not be giving as much protection as they want to lead you to believe against this Delta strain. I think that's where we are, because these numbers, we were talking about this, these numbers don't make any sense. I mean, we're over 1,000 new cases here in Arkansas alone. I think close to
right, but I mean, they want to talk about nationwide. So looking at nationwide, they're saying 46 million. Okay. It's up 9%. Well, how much did it fall before it started coming up this 9%? And for them to say about half of the new cases are from this Delta variant.
Right.
I mean, and almost all of the hospitalizations and deaths are from this Delta, or from unvaccinated people. But they're not saying that, well, I guess technically they are saying that it's all the Delta variant unvaccinated people.
What's interesting to me, though, is I do want to see the same thing you just talked about. I want to see the numbers of the vaccinated, even if they're small. Hey, if it's less than 1%, I'll be jumping for joy. But release those numbers so that we can talk about this. Like,
and that's what I've been telling my wife, is the way they talk without giving you numbers tells you that they're holding stuff back.
You're making a stronger case if you release those numbers for vaccination if they're low.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about, oh, we got to go door to door. Number one, I'm going to be completely honest with you. If somebody shows up at my door, if I was on the fence or hadn't already gotten vaccinated in this case, I'd probably make up my mind right there, like, screw you, I'm not getting vaccinated just because you decided to come annoy me. Like,
and why are they doing this is my big question, because you look at the flu every year. In fact, I was looking back and I started to grab my paper before we left Hot Springs, and I didn't. Erica even asked me if I wanted to turn around and get it, and I told her no. There was almost 700 million deaths year one of the influenza virus.
mm-hmm.
Okay. That's pretty much what we've got here. There's been, what, 650 million?
Yeah, something to that effect.
Or 650,000? Sorry, not million. Thousands?
Oh, yeah.
So, and I'm only talking about the U.S. You know, I couldn't tell you what the numbers are worldwide. But this isn't the first time a virus has really plagued the United States.
606,000 total right now. Of all of the cases since this began, 33.8 million cases.
Okay, and with influenza, it was almost 700,000.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So this is nothing new, and here we are, you know, several years later, where we're having to get an annual shot. Well, I shouldn't say we're having to. The choice is there to get an annual shot for flu because of the flu, variants that are out there.
Right.
But now we're seeing variants in the coronavirus, and they are already talking about the Lambda variant. My wife was saying, well, I don't remember Charlie and Echo and all that. And I let her know they're going by the Greek alphabet, not the standard alphabet.
Okay.
So they have already mentioned the Lambda variant. So, I mean, these variants that are coming out, how do they know that this the vaccines that they have already given out are going to work against these new strains that are starting to come out?
Well, and I see kind of, you know, being a little bit of a fortune teller here. That's what I see the push for the boosters will be. Well, you may need to get it for this Lambda variant. You may need to get it.
Are they going to change anything or just give you a boost of the same thing?
True.
That's the question. And then, like you and I had discussed with the FDA, you know, are they going to go for 100% testing to say that it's safe, or are they fine with their emergency testing that they got accomplished and pushed through? So now they've just dropped the whole thing, and well, it was good enough for the emergency status, so we'll just keep rolling it out.
Exactly. And you know, we also talked about the company and the government not really talking to each other.
Right.
Pfizer says yes, you need a 6-month booster. And the CDC and the FDA are saying, no, there's no studies saying that you need that. Who do we believe? Do we believe Fauci, or do we believe the company that made the COVID vaccine? Like, these are questions that we shouldn't be asking ourselves. And, you know, I'm not here to say go get the COVID shot or not go get the COVID shot. That's a personal thing for me that, you know, hey, if you want to go get it, feel free. If not, I'm not going to bust your balls about it. Because it's a personal decision, like the flu shot for me.
Everybody wants to push that it's a safety thing, and it's caring about other people, and it's for the betterment of the human race. But you have all kinds of other illnesses like diabetes and what other things are out there that they charge money for medications?
Well, and I would agree with you to a certain extent. So the one where I would encourage you 100% to go get one is, let's say you work around elderly folks that if they catch a cold, they're going to fucking die. Those are the people, yes, you definitely need to be vaccinated against any and every little thing that you can get vaccinated against, because those people do have those compromised immune systems.
But just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean that you're not carrying it?
That's true too. You know, that's actually interesting as well. As I do remember a quote, I believe from Fauci, that said, you know, because actually, transparency here, My church, a guy up at my church that I work closely with now that I'm working up at the church on Sundays, he tested positive for COVID. And that obviously started getting me thinking. We found out Sunday. And, Haley texted me and was like, well, you're vaccinated. So if you don't feel anything, there's really no need to go get tested. But it's still, even though I was vaccinated, my gears started turning automatically like, okay, do I need to go get that? Do I need to go get tested? Am I going to get sick again? So on and so forth. Because, even though it wasn't that bad the first time around, I'm not actively trying to go out there and catch the sumbitch.
Right. But you got to look at it this way, Mike, is what I'm talking about is just because you were vaccinated, is it possible that you were the one that carried it in there? You don't get sick from being around it, but it can still be on you and you can still transmit it. So you're saying all these nurses and people that work around elderly should get the vaccine, but that doesn't make the elderly safe from it.
Right. That's true.
And what about these children that are under 11? Or is it 11 or 12?
5 to 11 is what they're saying it's going to be approved for next.
These kids from 5 to 11 that don't qualify for these shots. Is the COVID virus just hanging out, carding them, asking them how old they are?
I'm wondering with that if it's more of so you know how they got like a children's Tylenol or what have you. They're kind of trying to decide if they need to dilute it or something as the person gets smaller and smaller. The interesting thing I'm looking at with this new research that, hey, we're going to start rolling it out to 5 to 11-year-olds, is this going to become a required shot to come to school?
Right.
I would not be surprised if next year your child will be required to have a COVID vaccination, which I do not agree with.
The argument on that is going to be the testing.
I agree. I completely agree with that. For me,
as an individual, as a father of a 5-year-old child who is about to start kindergarten, if they say that is mandatory, I'm going to mandate that they show me proof that there's no issues with the vaccine like Johnson & Johnson has been showing.
I absolutely agree. The thing is, the question will be, can they enforce a mandatory vaccination in public schools if that vaccination doesn't have FDA approval? I think we'd be talking about something completely different if the vaccination had FDA approval, whether, we believe personally that it works or not. I think that if it had the FDA seal of approval, you could push something through like that. I think because it's not a FDA approved drug technically, I think that there is no way that they could enforce that. They couldn't expect parents to do that. I do see them trying, though. I definitely see them trying.
Right. And there's even been a video circulating from the 76 swine flu vaccine that there were several cases. Was it hundreds or thousands?
I believe he said a percentage, but it was a high percentage, like 60 or 70% of the people
that had neurological issues after receiving this vaccine.
Right.
So that still has to be yet to be seen whether or not this affects you in the long term.
Right. In 20 years at 2:00 in the morning, we could all of a sudden wake up and hear, if you were injected with the COVID-19 vaccination, you may be entitled to compensation.
Yes.
It's one of those things. But you're right. We are going to get into a little bit more of the J&J vaccination here in a little bit. But, with the rush, we're kind of seeing the chickens come home to roost, especially with J&J. They're taking a hell of a beating. They were the first death. They were, now they've got this autoimmune disease that's going on. So, there is a ton that is causing issues for Johnson & Johnson.
I drink Corona Extra, and I've never gotten COVID. Well, I guess I can't say that. I never tested positive for COVID.
Hey, there you go.
Does that mean I can claim that is a vaccine?
Maybe. Hey, it makes you immune. It's like everything we were talking about whenever COVID first started. If you swim in pond water, you're immune from the coronavirus. All of that good stuff. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move on to Kamala's failed border policies, and we're going to talk about her. We're going to watch this clip on her trip to the southern border from CBS Evening News.
We turn now to the southern border, where today Vice President Kamala Harris said the Biden administration is making, quote, extreme progress, unquote, in addressing the surge in migrants there. It was a trip long demanded by her critics, and here is CBS's Nancy Cordes.
It's hardly unusual for politicians to tour the border, but this trip was closely watched because of the timing. 93 days after the vice president was tapped to lead the White House response to rising migration.
I said back in March I was going to come to the border, so this is not a new plan.
And yet, White House sources say today's trip came together so quickly it caused some confusion within the West Wing, though it did not come soon enough for the GOP.
She avoided traveling to the border for more than 90 days. In that short amount of time of more than 3 months, there's been more than 500,000 encounters.
Republicans also questioned why Vice President Harris went to El Paso instead of the Rio Grande Valley, some 800 miles away, which is the epicenter of illegal border crossings.
How did the vice president choose El Paso as the location for her first trip to the border as vice president?
It was the place where the former president it was a base place of where he put in place some of his immigration policies that we felt were so problematic.
Specifically, El Paso was home to the first pilot program for the Trump administration's zero tolerance policy, which led to migrant children being separated from their parents.
We've seen the disastrous effects of that right here in this region.
Vice President Harris says she's more focused on the root causes of migration, which is why she went to Guatemala and Mexico first. But critics argue the Biden administration is just trying to distance itself from a wave of border crossing, a wave that's larger than any other since 2006. Major.
Nancy Cordes, thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a moment. I want to kind of dissect this section by section. Let's start off with the fact that she was 800 miles away from the epicenter of the worst activity. So when they first said that, it hit my ear and I was like, oh, that's messed up. But they came behind it and said that is where the Trump administration's policies began. I can kind of understand that.
I don't understand that because the video that they showed while saying that shows those tents empty.
True.
It doesn't matter what was passed in that specific town. The issue is the border crossings, period. So
right.
You would think that she would go to the place where the border crossings are happening.
Right.
I mean, a lot of laws and things were passed in Washington, D.C. I'm surprised she didn't go there and say, well, this is where it started.
Touche. It's very interesting to me that they did show the tents, though, because in every other video we've seen, Manny, remember the video of the rooms that were separated by the plastic curtains and all the... Yeah. It looked nothing like that.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I mean, I'm not going to say I would love to live there, but...
Well, I can just say Lake Washita has yurts that look very similar.
Right, exactly. And it looks like, hey, they have their fruits. Wherever she was, they were being well taken care of, as opposed to wherever we saw that video of the people that were, sleeping on the ground and stuff. Like,
which, if I'm not mistaken, they determined was from 2014 during the Obama administration.
I will let you, because I know you itemized your points a little bit better, and I'm trying to go off of my skull here. What else did you pick up on the video there?
500,000 encounters at the Rio Grande.
Right.
And she is not talking to border agencies in public anyways. Maybe she's doing it behind the scenes, which I don't know why she would be throwing it up there. Hey, I'm in contact with these people and I'm in contact with these people, especially when she's being down for not visiting the border.
Exactly. So go ahead.
That tells me that she's not really in contact with these people. So how does she know exactly what's going on?
I agree. The gentleman, the representative from California, I didn't catch his name. It kind of flashed up there, but the representative from California who was speaking, 29 million encounters. That's a problem. I mean, I will agree. I'm for a pathway to citizenship. I think we've all talked about it. We're for making it easier. But 29 million people encounters since you came in office, and you're just now going down there. That's a problem.
Yeah. That's a problem. 29 million encounter, or 29 million encounters is one issue.
That's the population.
The fact that they are just crossing where they want to cross instead of actually trying to come through regular ports
of entry.
That's what I have the problem with.
Exactly.
Why are you trying to sneak in instead of legally getting in?
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
We've had stories on crashes with immigrants that are stowed in vans and trucks.
Not to mention sex and drug trafficking that they do with these immigrants.
It is. It's pitiful.
It absolutely is. These immigrants are taken advantage of. That is one thing that I want people to understand, is that helping the immigration policy will not only help that, I believe it will help, it'll help cut down on some of this stuff where these poor people are being taken advantage of just to get in the country. They'll be more inclined to come by themselves, where they don't have to rely on, excuse me if I get drugged for this in the comments, but Pablo down the street to get them across the border.
Yeah, they don't have to go to the Coyotes to.
Yeah, exactly.
Get them here.
You don't have to rely on somebody else to get you across the border, because, hey, it's easy enough. I can get myself across the border. I can do it legally, and we're good to go.
The other thing that I caught from that video that I had a problem with was her saying that she had gone to Venezuela to find out what the problem was. Okay, so that means the majority of these people are coming from Venezuela into Mexico. At that point, they are no longer in danger. They have now crossed the border into a different country where they're not in danger anymore. So why the push continue to go all the way to the United States?
Mexico kind of has its own set of problems, but yeah.
Well, they do have their own set of problems, but whenever 45 was in office, Mexico shut a bunch of that stuff down whenever they were told that American money would not be flowing that direction if that kept up.
Right. Very true, and I would agree with that. So let's transition now into our second topic in a row here. States are sending the National Guard to the southern border. And we have a story here from 12 News about Governor Greg Abbott and what's going on with the southern border.
At the Texas state capitol, Governor Greg Abbott met with sheriffs from border counties to discuss the latest efforts on protecting the state's southern border. Border security is one of 11 items on the special session agenda. The governor said that he has heard from sheriffs in border counties, and many of them say the same thing, needing more resources and law enforcement personnel to legally process people who are coming across the border. The governor also gave an update on the border wall project, while also expressing his disappointment with the state of our border.
Our message to the country is that even though the federal government may have abandoned their responsibility, we are not going to abandon our responsibility. We have here with us today people who believe in the rule of law, people who will enforce the rule of law, and there are others like them across the state.
Governor Abbott also said that the money put toward building the wall will increase, but has yet said how much the wall will cost.
Okay, so let's talk about this. I want to start off by saying, number one, Governor Abbott just needs to come out and say, hey, 2024, I'm running for president. I want to tie something in that we talked about last week when I shared a story. And you asked me why I shared the story, and I've thought about it since then. So I shared the story when Donald Trump came to the border and he was invited by Greg Abbott to get a briefing. I don't know necessarily that I was angry that he was receiving briefings. What I'm angry at is I want to say disrespect of the office, but I don't know if it's necessarily that. What I'm angered by with all of that is the grandstanding by Governor Abbott, who's accusing the president of doing the same thing. Like, we're not getting anything done. To be honest, Donald J. Trump can no longer do anything about your problem that you're having.
Well,
So
that's not necessarily true. Donald J. Trump has been a businessman. He's got access to engineers, builders, all kinds of things.
True.
While it may not be the national government building the wall anymore, the state government could still build the wall.
Right.
It is still the government. And the government can contract any company they want.
Right. Which it sounds like that's the option he's looking at right now. The interesting thing I'm looking at though is the grandstanding here. Like, once again, what are you accomplishing by doing this? Donald Trump comes to office, all you're doing is this to Joe Biden. Like, legitimately, you're just flipping him the bird and you're grandstanding, in my opinion. What does that do to move your case or anybody's case forward? I mean, unless it is a business meeting like you alluded to there.
It puts a notice in his jacket, if nothing else, to borrow the words from a movie that talked about a prisoner is as good as his jacket, meaning his paperwork. When a parole board looks at the file of a person, that is called their jacket, and that's all they know about this prisoner.
Right.
He gets paroled or denied parole based on what is in that service plan. It's the same way with the presidency. You are picked up or discarded in people's minds, backed by other governors, senators, other people, based on what's in your jacket. Now, if he has a card that says, I cut, what would we say, 29 million encounters to 10 million encounters because I pushed forward with the wall when Biden wasn't, that helps his case.
Well, and that's the other thing I wanted to ask you about. In your mind, right now with what's going on, as much as he would like to push everything off on the Biden administration, is Governor Abbott at least not partially, if not as much to blame for what's going on at his southern border right now as the Biden administration?
That I honestly don't know. I don't know who has more sway there.
That's why I said partially, because
right.
I would think the federal government would have more sway. But, I mean, what are you doing about it, Governor Abbott? You're having a bunch of meetings.
Right. What else has he been able to do about it, though? I mean, I honestly don't know.
Right.
I don't know if the national government had to turn it down a certain number of times before he could pick it up, or if it had to look like the national government had totally abandoned the project before state government could pick it up. I don't know those lines. What I do know is Biden has talked about continuing with the wall at the border. Right. And maybe he has turned some of that over to
Governor Abbott.
And this is the direction he's decided to go is, well, since I've gotten the okay from the Biden administration, and I can pull in whatever company I want, let me go ahead and talk to Donald J. Trump, see what he can offer. True. What contacts does he have that we could bring down here and maybe get this done for cheaper?
Okay, I can see that.
And I'm spitting out possibilities.
Right, absolutely.
I totally have no idea of everything.
Absolutely. So, of course, you see the headline here. We have seen an influx over the past couple of weeks, and even I believe some of the stories I saw were going back months, where states are sending National Guard troops down to the southern borders. I believe Governor Hutchinson has done this as well here in the state of Arkansas, sent National Guard troops down to the border. Is this a Republican grandstand where, hey, if you're not going to send the federal troops down, we're going to go ahead and send the National Guard and we're going to do what we want? Or how do you look at this?
I see it as a bunch of individuals. Well, I can't say individuals because they do represent states.
Right.
I see it as a group of government officials who are trying to help a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe any of this is racially motivated.
Right.
I don't believe any of this is meant to throw a finger at the Biden administration. I truly believe it is states who is trying to help an issue.
Right. Right. Which, I mean, to be fair, you know, you look at it. So Arkansas, for example, we'll take Arkansas. Arkansas has one of the highest populations, I believe, in the country for illegal immigration. And they tend to come up through Texas and settle in Arkansas. So, yes, I could see the benefit Governor Hutchinson could reap from this. One that kind of throws me off is South Dakota. Like, are they going up that far north? Like, you'd
be surprised because of the interstate system. There is a big hub of Mexicans and Venezuelans, and you know you can throw them in. Everybody wants to throw them in a pot of Hispanic, but I mean, most of us never had anything to do with Spain. There is a big influx in Chicago.
Really?
Yes.
That's an interesting one. I never would have thought that they would have gone that far north either. So that's definitely interesting to me. Maybe they are getting into South Dakota, and that's why the governor. I mean, we're going to talk about her in a minute because Jesus Christ, she said some stupid shit over the weekend at the CPAC. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see how this all goes.
And you also could look at who's doing what based on the constituents of their state.
Right.
I mean, South Dakota's governor may think, hey, this is what the people would really see as a positive. So by doing this, maybe that gives me another term, two terms.
It's funny to look at because the people that you are noticing are trying to throw their name out there in the hat are the biggest names with this immigration. So you can kind of start to see the framework of what 2024 is going to be run off of, at least from the Republican side. Very heavy immigration.
Even if it isn't a presidential run, I mean, you got midterms coming up.
True. Which, I mean, I'm starting to believe based on the immigration situation. And even though I don't believe he's flubbed terribly on it, I think COVID could play a role in some pretty sound defeats for Democrats in 2022. Real quick, though, before we move on, I do want to ask, where do you see this standoff between the Biden administration and Governor Abbott ending? I mean, is Governor Abbott going to blink first, or do you think the Biden administration will blink first?
Well, but like I told you, I don't think that it is a standoff.
Okay.
Biden has mentioned that the border wall is important.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he's against Governor Abbott on it.
Right.
He may not be acting as fast as Abbott wants.
Okay.
And maybe he has already turned the reins over to Abbott to, okay, well, get me some information on it. And maybe the Biden administration and Abbott are actually working together.
I mean, and it could be that. Definitely interesting. I could see the not moving fast enough situation is definitely accurate, which is why he would call in. I honestly think he called in Donald, maybe like you said, for a business proposal. But
that's honestly what I think it is. I think he's getting information business-wise so that he can take back to Biden.
I think it's obvious that he did it also, once again, Governor Abbott should have just came out and said, hey, 2024, I'm running. I think that it was a move to, hey, let's get my name out in the news there a little bit too by inviting Donald Trump. Even if that's all, we're going to bury the fact that I'm doing it for Joe and everybody to get them a business proposal. We're just going to get the headline that Donald Trump came here and I'm showing up the current administration. That very well could be it.
And there's also the other side of that coin where it could be the media. Oh, look what he did. I bet he's doing this, and they're blowing it all out of proportion.
Very true. That's possible because the media does do that from time to time. If it bleeds, it leads, for example. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about China. China is losing their damn minds over some damn asteroids. And we have a story here, and I know you're going to take some notes on this because I found some of these numbers interesting. It's from Science and Tech News on YouTube.
Chinese scientists suggest launching dozens of rockets to prevent asteroid collision with Earth. The effort is aimed at the asteroid Bennu, a 492 meters in diameter spinning top-shaped rock, which will pass within 7.5 million kilometers of Earth's orbit between 2175 and 2199. The space rock will be designated as potentially harmful at this time, with scientists predicting a 1 in 2,700 risk of colliding with our planet. To stay up to date with latest top stories, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking the button above this video. In a newly published research, experts at China's National Space Science Center have proposed launching a fleet of rockets into space to simulate diverting an asteroid away from Earth. According to Chinese models, the simultaneous impact of 23 900-ton-long March 5 (CZ-5) launch vehicles could throw the Bennu asteroid some 9,000 kilometers or 5,592 miles off course. This is 1.4 times the Earth's radius, and it might mean the difference between the asteroid passing by and crashing into the planet with catastrophic results. Asteroid impacts pose a major threat to all life on Earth. Deflecting an asteroid on an impact trajectory is critical to mitigating this threat, the research abstract available online says. A kinetic impactor remains the most feasible asteroid deflection method, and a significant amount of kinetic energy would be required to knock an asteroid like Bennu off its original course. While nuclear-powered explosions may appear to be the logical choice for such a mission, this strategy would risk the target breaking up into several bits, which may then collide with the Earth. This combination of December 2, 2018 photos made available by NASA shows a set of stereoscopic images of a large, 170-foot, 52-meter boulder that juts from asteroid Bennu's southern hemisphere and the rocky slopes that surround it. The scientists, however, say that their proposal makes it possible to deflect large Bennu-like asteroids with a nuclear-free technique with a 10-year launch lead time. Additionally, with a single CZ-5, the deflection distance of a 140-meter diameter asteroid with a 10-year launch lead time increases from less than 1 to more than 1 Earth radius, representing an improvement in the reliability and efficiency of asteroid deflection missions, the paper says. The Chinese team's approach calls for numerous rockets to strike Bennu's surface at the same time, after traveling 3 years from Earth to reach the asteroid. By not detaching from the rocket's upper stage, each deflector ship, called an assembled kinetic impactor, would be more effective, bringing more mass to.
Okay, I think we've gotten enough science for today. Okay, so that's the kind of the official story of what China's doing with these rockets. I want to break this down first, and let's assume the story's true. He said 2175.
To 2199, that's a big gap, a long way away.
I won't even know my ancestors that are alive in that time period. I'm sorry. I know that people are worried about the Earth and leaving it good, but
the other part that goes with that is they're complaining about the 3 years it could take before getting a rocket up there to actually push an asteroid out of the way.
Right.
So that means 75, 74, 73. So that means 2172 we can send some rockets up there and still catch it.
But mind you, that's not stopping them from building rockets. Okay, let's go into what me and Manny believe these rockets are for. This is again China, I believe, kind of thumbing their nose at the Biden administration, and they're using this as kind of a cover up.
Yes.
Best case scenario, I think China's weighing their options. I don't know what the hell Biden's doing to piss them off on a daily basis, but it seems like day in and day out, they get more and more like, okay, yeah, we're gonna fuck these. We're just gonna take over the world. I don't know, man. Like,
you pretty much voiced the stuff that we've been talking about. Every day we seem to be hearing about China and how they're ramping up for war. And then they're going to come with this feel-good piece about, oh, they're trying to deflect asteroids by sending rockets up. It's like, we already know that they're not going to use nuclear weapons to deflect rockets because a nuclear explosion in space that close to the Earth is actually going to rain down debris, nuclear debris, in our atmosphere, which is going to hurt us. So we already know that it's not going to be a nuclear thing that they do to try to change the direction of an asteroid.
Right.
The tests that China have done already with long-range missiles that can reach the United States has already happened. They have tested rockets.
Right.
They hit the kill switch and land them in the ocean. But they have already started testing it. And in my opinion, and you and I have shared this back and forth, and I believe we're on the same page, this is all they're doing with these.
Exactly. I agree. I think that this is another situation where, hey, look over here while I'm doing this over here. And they're once again like, hey, this is a convenient cover story if the UN happened to say, let me come look at what you're doing. Like, bro, we're not all stupid. We know what games you're playing. And I do believe Joe knows what games they're playing. The interesting thing, though, is, like, I haven't seen a fire point where, like, is China just lost their damn mind and decided that they're going to take over the world? Or what the hell are we doing that they're wanting to do this? That's where I'm
and that's another thing. I don't know how well they can do that to take over the world. They're having issues with claiming ownership of Vietnam, which is, what, 100 miles from them? I mean, because it's an island, China has no way to get their big army across there. So you can tout their large army all you want. If they're not able to get that army mobile, that army does nothing.
Right. And I would agree.
If they can't get to Vietnam, or not Vietnam, was it Taiwan?
Taiwan, yeah.
If they can't get to Taiwan to put them in check and make sure that they're doing what's supposed to happen, I don't see them making it over the ocean to the United States.
Well, that's true. But I don't understand what the hell has crawled up China's ass, for lack of a better term. Like, I have not seen anything, whether it be the Trump administration or even the Biden administration, that took away a lot of the sanctions that the Trump administration put on China, that we have done that is provoking them to the point of this amount of aggression, which is what I call it, that you're going to do this shit. Like, I may be missing something.
No,
I'm at a loss for what the hell.
It could be the sanctions. Putting the sanctions on them, I'm sure, hurt their economy.
Yeah.
You've got a bunch of starving people that are starving even more now because of the sanctions. Joe Biden, I mean, maybe China didn't react because, hey, Joe Biden will be in the office pretty soon. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Joe Biden didn't relieve some of those sanctions might have pushed them to the point that they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll go ahead and flex then. Look what we can do.
Right. Which, I mean, once again, at this point, y'all don't want to fuck with us and we don't want to fuck with you because we know what it's going to end with, and it's going to be a mushroom cloud over some pretty damn big cities.
Total annihilation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's what we're trying to avoid. Democrats are all about sanctioning before you declare war. Well, let's get some sanctions rolling and tell them that we're not going to let this shit stand. For damn sure. We're not going to let this shit go
through. It's really stupid to think that they are sending rockets up just to test a theory.
Yeah.
I mean, how exactly do you test that theory? It's not like you've got an asteroid you can practice on up there.
Exactly. Not to mention, let's be honest, the thing that you kind of hit on it when we were talking about the nuclear option. If you blow this sumbitch up, there's a good chance that some of these asteroids are coming and they're going to fall in our atmosphere and they're going to fall to Earth. Like, you're still going to cause some issues, even if you do this. So, like, bro, we're looking prematurely, if that's the truth of what they're doing, which, once again, I think we kind of laugh about that being what they're actually doing. Okay, real quick before we move on to our story about the FBI, and we don't actually have a video on that one, I do apologize. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back. Each and every Monday night, join the American Idiots podcast for a fresh look at the top headlines that are currently dividing our country. It's the American Idiots podcast only on Podcast Network 49. Every Saturday afternoon from 2 to 4, join the Natural State Sports Podcast with Michael Carnahan, Aaron, and Mike Pettis, where we take the top headlines in all of sports and we debate them for you, the fan. It's the Natural State Sports Podcast only on Podcast Network 49.
I've been champion for a long time, Tony, simply because I'm the best there is. I got more women waiting for me in that hallway, quivering, shaking, having conniptions than you met in the last 5 years. You know why? Because I just happen to be Slick Rick.
Join Michael and Aaron each week as they break down the most influential and sometimes downright hilarious pay-per-views in professional wrestling history. It's the Wrestling Wrap-Up Show only for you on Podcast Network 49. Each and every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, join Michael Carnahan and Lisa O'Brien for the Clear and Convincing podcast, live on Podcast Network 49, where we look at the most infamous cases in our country's history, not from the court of public opinion, But from the court's perspective, it's the Clear and Convincing Show on Podcast Network 49. It has never been any easier to keep up with all of your favorite Podcast Network 49 shows. If you're a fan of just listening along, you can always go to iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your favorite podcasts and subscribe. If you're more of a visual listener to our shows, go ahead and check out our Facebook and YouTube lives, or you can always go in and check out the archived content. Once again, it's never been easier to keep up with Podcast Network 49. Welcome to the American Idiots Podcast, the show where we take the hottest topics currently dividing our country and we debate them with our diverse group of hosts. So sit back and strap in, as for the next 2 hours we leave no story undebated and no politician will be spared. It's the American Idiots Podcast live on Podcast Network 49, and it begins right now. Okay, we are back here with the American Idiots Show. Here we go. So
a couple of things before we go into that.
Okay.
Man. I will always laugh every time I see that video of Baby Bush getting shoes thrown at him.
Oh my goodness, yes, that is great.
The way everybody rushes in like 30 seconds after the fact, it's like that would have been a knife or a gun done. Everybody comes rushing in like they're going to save the day, and the shoes are already off.
I don't know which one I appreciate more, the response to Baby Bush or the response to his dad throwing up where they acted like the man just got shot. But you know what I've noticed? So we have all these funny videos of Bush and through Biden. You don't get those before HW. Like, I tried so hard to find one of Jimmy Carter falling on his face or something. And
right.
It's crazy how that has evolved. I guess with the 24-hour news cycle, maybe that's why.
You got cameras on them a lot more often.
Right.
Because I don't recall a lot of footage of earlier presidents like getting off Air Force One and getting into a vehicle that's leaving an airport, going to somewhere else. Yeah, they definitely follow a lot more with cameras. Curious as to why we bumped the music.
Why we bumped the music? So I figure, copyright violation. Do you not like the new music? If you don't like the new music, I can definitely change it. I just went newscast, but I can definitely change it.
Right. I mean, it's cool. I would like the voices of the people talking back in it.
Okay.
But yeah, I figured it was copyright.
Yeah, yeah, and that's more than that's easy to do as far as that goes. I can definitely add them back in. Okay, so with that being said, you shared a story that I found very interesting about the FBI. I don't have a video on it, unfortunately. I wish I did, but this is a story about the FBI. They infiltrated a Bible study group in Virginia that wanted to test out homemade bombs and surveil the Capitol and secede from the U.S. Number one, how do you stumble across these? Because holy crap, that's crazy.
I'm sure it's cross chatter on social media message boards and stuff like that. I'm sure, in the day-to-day spying that the government does on its own citizens, that they pick up keywords here and there while tapping phones that they really shouldn't be tapping.
Right.
But I mean, in the end, maybe it's a good thing that they do. I don't know.
I was about to say, we can argue you want to give up all day.
Well, it's one of those, how much of your freedoms do you want to give up? But then you look at if you don't want them tapping your cellular phone, don't get a cellular phone, I guess.
Right. Very true.
They will take advantage of whatever they can. So if you give them less options of things to take advantage of, then you limit their power.
Exactly.
The part that cracked me up was whenever they said they wanted to secede from the Union.
Right.
Go ahead. Move back across the border.
Exactly.
You don't have to be a part of this union.
Like, for real, as much as I dislike, and this is the crazy part of politics to me. So let's say, as much as I disliked what Trump was doing, if Trump had become, a two-term president, I'm not going to be standing out here up in arms saying, "Oh, I'm leaving the country." Oh, like, politics has become crazy to me because they did it to Trump in 2016 as well. Like, people just, it's mind-blowing to me how people, when they don't get their way, they throw these hissy fits.
They're doing the same thing that I get upset with when I see immigration that happens. They leave these places that were so bad, but then want to set up basically what they just left.
Okay.
In their own area. And that's pretty much what these people were planning on doing is, well, we want it to be like this and not like that. So instead of changing our votes or trying to get people to vote a different way, we're just going to blow everything up. And then we're going to make this area ours so that people will follow our rules here. That's the same crap.
Well, and I mean, it's the same people that argue, "Oh, my vote doesn't matter. I don't want to vote," or what have you. And you're like, bro, if you could go out and actually do, what you can as a citizen and support your president that you want, your candidate that you want to become president, then maybe you could make the difference and swing some additional votes.
And we have already talked at length that it's not always the presidency that needs to be changed.
Exactly.
If you need different representation, then get different representation.
In this
case,
case,
senators, vote for different congressmen.
In this case, I think the whole lot of them may need to be thrown out because Congress ain't done much either.
Yeah.
It's pretty depressing. But yeah, I definitely wanted to touch on this because this is pretty damn mind-blowing. For those that want to look at it, it's a CNN article on MSN. FBI infiltrates group whose members wanted to test homemade bombs, surveil the Capitol, secede from the U.S., court records show. It was 5 days ago. So go ahead and go look that up and be prepared to dive into Virginia's backwoods and hear some banjos and all sorts of stuff. Okay, this next one is literally just the GOP has lost their damn mind with this one. Like, I think, honestly, I can't even say the GOP because they probably laugh about this lady in their closed-door meetings. But Governor Kristi Noem, or however you say her name, criticizes GOP governors who enacted COVID-19 mandates while accusing some of rewriting history. She said that the Republican governors that enacted COVID-19 mandates, they lacked grit in, I guess, defeating the COVID-19 virus. So my question is, where was Governor Hutchinson lacking grit when he acted rather late on COVID-19? He was bandying about that he didn't act on COVID-19 and saying, hey, we were looking great. And then all of a sudden we fell off the face of the earth. So he did what he needed to do. So are you telling me Governor Hutchinson lacked grit when he tried to go about it without, business as usual, but his hand was forced?
See, and this is where I'm at a bit of a loss, because like I've said before, with my schedule the way it's been, and especially, these past few days being on vacation, we've been sightseeing and all kinds of stuff. So I hadn't had a lot of time to sit down and read these articles. Is that the direction she's coming from?
Yeah.
I thought that she was saying that they lacked grit for following what California and New York and all these other places were doing.
Well, I mean, essentially, if I'm reading correctly, my interpretation is, rather similar. Hey, you shouldn't have shut down your state. You shouldn't have enacted all of these mandates for COVID to try to stop the spread.
Yeah, so.
Which is hilarious to me.
Yeah, I don't know why she thinks that they don't have the grit. This was something that everybody was trying to battle. Nobody had answers. The information we were getting was spotty. Nobody could agree on what was real, what was fake. The government itself, and this goes back to what we were talking about with the vaccine. You look at the death toll of what the coronavirus has done in a little over a year. I'll say a little over a year. It's almost a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And that the government itself has mentioned that regardless of how you die, if you had COVID at the time of death, it's considered a COVID death. So how many of those deaths can really be attributed to COVID? And it wasn't due to a car crash that severed your neck. But you happen to have COVID, so it's a COVID death now.
True. Hey, you started that coughing fit because you had COVID, which led to the car accident, which, damn it, led to that.
I mean, that's the crazy crap, You've got stage 4 cancer. We give you about 2 weeks to live, a week, and 6 days later, COVID got you. So it's a COVID death now.
Right.
It's just that kind of stuff, in my opinion, is trumping up the numbers to fit what you're trying to push. And I believe that this governor is trying to point that out. Y'all wanted to listen to what they were saying instead of standing on your own 2 feet and saying, no, you should not be doing it this way. Those deaths that you're saying we need to be counting, we shouldn't be counting because those were not the causes of the death.
Right. So I'm going to read you some direct quotes from her speech. She says, we've got Republican governors across this country pretending they didn't shut down their states. They didn't close their regions. That they didn't mandate masks, said the potential 2024 White House contender, as she drew implicit but obvious contrast to leaders like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who took a more restrictive approach in their states. She says, now I'm not picking fights with Republican governors. All I'm saying is that we need leaders with grit, that their first instinct is the right instinct. Let's stop there. Number one, I want to go after the fact that she just went after Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida. Florida was utterly devastated by COVID-19. Argument could be made that it still is in devastation from COVID-19. Are you fucking kidding me?
I know on one of our episodes, we talked about the recovery rate, and they were recovering a lot quicker than California, which did the exact opposite of everything Florida did.
Well, I mean, towards the end, Governor DeSantis did start, enacting the mask mandates and, hey, no travel, no cruises are coming, yada, 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 which actually...
But I don't understand why she's saying that now they're acting like they didn't do that. I mean, I don't see where they're trying to hide.
I was about to say, I don't think Governor DeSantis has ever said, hey, I didn't close my border. I didn't, if anything, I'm pretty sure Governor DeSantis, I don't know about Governor Abbott. I haven't really heard much about him as far as what he said on COVID-19, but I don't think I've heard a single thing from Governor DeSantis saying, hey, well, I left my stuff open and we did such a great job. Like Governor DeSantis is trying to bury his response to COVID-19.
Yeah, I really think she's just trying to point fingers to say that they didn't stick with their initial thoughts on this virus don't need to be treated like this.
Right.
And that's what she's really trying to hang whatever she's doing on.
Right.
It's a run for a different office, or if she's looking at re-election in the governorship.
So my question is this: do you think that a governor who did shut down his state, like DeSantis, like Hutchinson, would you categorize them as lacking grit and determination?
No, I wouldn't personally.
Okay.
No. It was a time when pretty much everybody was under the assumption that, hey, it could help.
Right, so, exactly.
Like I said, there was so much cross information going on. You got a lot of people that kept pointing to Fauci saying, hey, listen to him. He knows what he's talking about. Listen to him. He knows what he's talking about. Before everybody in the country now is anti-Fauci.
Right. Which, I mean...
But how many of those people were actually for Fauci and not just anti-Trump?
Which, I mean, that's interesting to me that now so many people are anti-Fauci, because I still am of the opinion that, hey, I can't tell Fauci how to do his job because, damn it, I know nothing about infectious disease, and this dude's been studying it his whole 90-looking years that he's been on this earth. I mean, that's my thing with that. I've always been kind of hands off with, I'm not going to tell a doctor how to do their job because they went to medical school and they know more about this stuff than I do. But
I want to say that I've heard Dr. Fauci's doctorate isn't in exactly what he's practicing.
Really? Now, I would be interested if you can give me that information. That's very interesting because he is the foremost expert on infectious disease, but if he got that title and he isn't in infectious disease, that's very interesting to me.
Erica's looking it up right now, so we'll continue to stay on the subject.
Absolutely. Real quick, I got another one. I got another couple quotes from you. She says, demand honesty from your leaders and make sure that every one of them is willing to make tough decisions. She repeatedly touted her hands-off approach to COVID-19 throughout her speech at the CPAC, highlighting the fact that she never ordered a single business to close. She says South Dakota did not do any of those measures. We didn't mandate. We trusted our people, and it told them that personal responsibility was the best answer.
And what do we know about the numbers from South Dakota as far as corona goes?
Hold on. Here's my thing, though. Can you really compare South Dakota, which, let's be honest, they've had 125,000 cases, 2,039 deaths. Let's compare that just to Arkansas. Hold on. Arkansas has had 355,000 and 5,948 deaths. Can you really compare such a sparsely populated area like South Dakota to that of Florida, Arkansas, Texas? Obviously, we have more people. We're going to have more cases. We're going to have more, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of common sense to me. You're not really proving your point when you dive deep into this. Does that make sense to you? What I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you still had over 100,000 cases. You still had a lot of deaths. Like, your approach wasn't any better than ours.
Well, and when I ask if we've got information on South Dakota and what's going on over there, I'm more looking at business closures, stuff like that. How many people lost their small businesses because they closed the doors, in these other states, versus how many people lost their businesses because the clientele just wasn't there in South Dakota because they weren't forced to close their doors.
Well, it looks like there were some. It looks like people did take personal accountability, and it looks like the restaurants did suffer and they were struggling. But that's about all I can see from. That's about all I can see from a quick Google search on those numbers. I don't have any real accurate numbers for that right there, so I do apologize on that. But I mean, so I can definitely understand your point as far as, I can even see, hey, I'm trying to get my name out there, and I know that I'm a long shot right now because, let's be honest, she's pretty much a political newcomer on the nationwide.
Right.
So yes, you're going to go after the big fish in the pond, but
so she may not even be pressing for a very high office. Maybe she's looking at, a senator's seat or a Congress seat, something a little bit smaller. And this is one of the things that she's trying to hang her hat on. As far as Dr. Fauci goes, he, where did I just see that? His education, he has a BA from College of the Holy Cross and an MD in Cornell University. His fields are immunology. The institutions that he has worked for, National Institute of Health, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. That doesn't mean that he actually works with infectious diseases all the time.
So quick Google search on immunology, and I'm going to ask you to help me kind of I guess, decipher this. Immunology is the branch of medicine and biology concerned with immunity. Yes. Would that speak to him being an infectious disease expert? Like, I mean, I guess you become an expert by working in those fields for so long, but would that lend? I guess it would lend itself to infectious disease a lot more than, say, like a standard practitioner, like a family practice doctor. But
diseases and viruses are different animals altogether.
Right.
The other thing that this says was he became director of NIAID in '84 and has made contributions to HIV/AIDS research, which we know is a virus.
I think he was actually one of the experts when AIDS was first going around. I could be wrong on that. But I believe he was one of the, the people that were touted when AIDS was first going around, which once again proves he's been around for 100 years. But, hey, it is what it is. Okay. I'm definitely interested, though, because I never knew that, like, once again, I guess maybe it does speak to a little bit of what he's doing with infectious disease, but that's definitely interesting. I'd have to read the tea leaves to kind of get into that.
If I'm not mistaken, what I had seen was basically talking about his work with allergies. So even there, whatever I had read, it wasn't really cluing in all the information of where all the worked. The piece that I was reading apparently was trying to down him. So of course they give bare minimal information because it happens on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
they're going to give the information that supports their argument. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay, so it seems like we've been talking about this forever, but we do have some more updates on the Florida condo collapse. And we have this story here from Reuters. I believe it was on yesterday or the day before.
Our team continues to make incredible progress delayering the pile. And we're working to bring closure to families as quickly as we possibly can. We have now recovered over 14 million pounds of concrete and debris. And through our search and recovery, we have recovered additional victims since our last briefing, and the number of confirmed deaths is now 90. We've also made identifications as the police and medical examiner have continued also to work tirelessly to identify victims and then to notify next of kin in person immediately once identifications are made. 51 of the 90 victims have been identified and their next of kin notified. 71. What did I say?
You said 50, 71.
Excuse me. 71 victims have been identified and their next of kin notified. And our hearts and minds are always with those we've lost and with the families who are grieving and those that are still waiting. Our detectives are continuing to make progress in their audit and their diligent efforts of researching, verifying all reports on the unaccounted list and working with the families to open missing person police reports. And as a result, we have continued to move reports from the unaccounted to the accounted list. 217 people are now accounted for, and 31 people are potentially unaccounted for.
So, mind you, the first thing that popped off to me and that, am I the only one that thought she looked a little pissed off when that woman jumped in to correct her? She was like, what'd I say?
My first thought was, ooh, somebody's getting fired about that one.
Right.
Either they gave her a bad number or she just brain farted when she was looking at her notes, because she stared at her notes for several seconds after that information came in. So I wonder if it was written down incorrectly or
whether somebody had fed her some bad information. Yeah.
Or she just couldn't read her own writing.
One thing I want to know, how long did the World Trade Center cleanup take?
I want to say it was like close to a year.
Okay. So I'm wrong then. I was about to say, what is taking so long with this cleanup? Because I thought within
the biggest
month and a half they had done a lot of the recovery, and I'm like, why are they still pulling bodies?
The biggest part of the issue with the cleanup is they're, like she said, they're taking it layer by layer, trying to find bodies. So they can't just go scoop and drag everything out of there.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest things that takes so long. The number, I mean, they were saying 217 are accounted for, 31 are unaccounted for. 248 people. You're looking at almost 250 people. They're not sure where they're at. So yeah, they take that very slowly as they're lifting layer by layer out of there.
Which actually, I never even thought about this, but I'm asking the perfect person as far as this stuff. I mean, I know you're not demolition, you're construction, but I just
not demolition,
the perfect person.
Construction, but I'm also former Navy. I was part of an aircraft reclamation team.
Oh, okay.
If an aircraft went down, I was part of a team that would go to track down pieces, collect parts of an aircraft so that it didn't fall into the wrong hands, make sure we got back everything, stuff like that. So I'm familiar with procedures like that when you're talking about trying to get things back in an orderly fashion. So that is really the biggest holdup on what takes a cleanup so long when you're looking at such a high number of people unaccounted for.
So
early on, it's making sure you don't disturb it to the point that it falls in and kills somebody that is alive.
Right, you're trying to find
Then
survival.
once you pass that point and you're pretty sure that anybody that's still there is dead now, you don't want to just go digging into it because you could be ripping bodies in half.
Right.
And you're still trying to figure out, what happened, what caused it to fall. So you do take it layer by layer to find where those weak points were that caused it to come down like it did.
Okay, so this makes complete sense now that it's taken quite a while. So my thought here that I want to get across on this is starting to seem like a situation because, there was the warnings beforehand. Engineers, the guy, I believe, who built the building or designed the building warned them that, hey, this may be going on. This sounds like something that politicians love to jump on. I wouldn't be surprised. Right. Are we going to get like maybe not on the federal level, but are we going to get like some sort of congressional hearing on what the hell went wrong here?
That honestly wouldn't surprise me, even if it's not congressional. It wouldn't surprise me if it's state-led.
Right. Right.
The governor doing some kind of hearing. Certainly licenses and stuff like that based on people that run these kind of things. Inspections, how often inspections need to be done, what is being inspected, when inspections are done, who signed off on the okays, and the things that were found that were an issue, were they in the process of being looked at?
I mean, I'm pretty confident that lawsuits are a given at this point.
Oh yeah. Especially when it came out that they had been dinged on some inspections and issues pointed out that could cause problems with collapse. Especially if that has been recently. But these buildings and insurance that are got for these buildings, they are built to withstand the environment around them.
Right.
You build stuff in California to withstand earthquakes. You build stuff in Florida to withstand hurricanes.
Right.
But everybody knows that salt water is more corrosive than rainwater.
Right. Very good.
So how much of that played into it?
And I didn't think about that, but that's a very good point. Because, I mean, of course, there was no hurricane. This isn't something that, the storm came through and built it. But that's actually interesting. It may be a saving grace for the people that are, obviously they have the evidence of the failed inspections and so on and so forth. But that may be, a little bit, at least lower their liability type of saving grace for these, for the building owner and everything. Because, you do make a good point. Salt water is corrosive, so maybe they could argue that, so to speak, in a court.
I mean, that also goes back to the inspectors. They have to be trained to inspect for that kind of damage.
Right.
So when these inspectors come in on a routine inspection, most of us know what happens with our routines. We just kind of, fly blindly because we've done it so many times for so long. What might have been missed?
Oh, good point.
That a routine inspection should have caught.
Okay, good point. I like that. Okay, let's go ahead and go on to one that we just had break over the past few hours. A new warning label is going to be added to the Johnson & Johnson drug for a rare autoimmune disease labeled that syndrome. I'm not even going to try. It's like Guillain-Barré syndrome or some shit.
Guillain-Barré.
Guillain-Barré. We'll go with that.
Julian.
Julian. Oh, yeah. Because, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And we have a story from Instant News on this.
The Food and Drug Administration is preparing to announce a new warning for the Johnson & Johnson coronavirus vaccine, saying the shot has been linked to a serious but rare side effect, Guillain-Barré syndrome, in which the immune system attacks the nerves, according to 4 individuals familiar with the situation. About 100 preliminary reports of Guillain-Barré have been detected after 12.8 million doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine were administered, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said in a statement. These cases have largely been reported about 2 weeks after vaccination and mostly in men, many aged 50 years and older. Available data do not show a pattern suggesting a similar increased risk with the Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna vaccines, after more than 321 million doses of those vaccines have been administered in the United States. The Guillain-Barré cases will be discussed as part of an upcoming meeting of CDC advisors, the agency said. Guillain-Barré syndrome usually occurs at a rate of about 60 to 120 cases each week, according to CDC data. While the cause of the syndrome is not fully understood, it often follows infection with a virus, including influenza, or bacteria. Each year in the United States, an estimated 3,000 to 6,000 people develop the illness. Most people fully recover, but some have permanent nerve damage, according to the CDC. People older than 50 are at greatest risk. In addition, about 2/3 of people who develop the syndrome experience symptoms several days or weeks after they have been sick with diarrhea or a lung or sinus illness. Officials are expected to emphasize that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is safe and that its benefits clearly outweigh the potential risks, according to the people familiar with the situation. Johnson & Johnson and the FDA declined to comment. Still, the warning will be the latest blow to a vaccine that had been widely anticipated for its ease of use. It requires only a single dose, which makes it especially helpful for harder-to-reach populations and regions. But the vaccine has been plagued by problems. In April, federal officials paused use of the vaccine after it was linked to another rare side effect, severe blood clots. That pause was lifted within days after an extensive safety review by the FDA and CDC, and a warning was added to the Johnson & Johnson label. The vaccine also has been hobbled by production problems at Johnson & Johnson subcontractor, Emergent Biosolutions, the only U.S. manufacturer of the vaccine. The Baltimore plant was shut down in April after federal officials discovered millions of doses had been contaminated with AstraZeneca vaccine, which was also being made there. Johnson & Johnson has had to throw away the equivalent of about 75 million doses of the vaccine. About another 40 million doses have been released for use.
This is the kind of shit. The fact that the FDA is still saying that the positives outweigh the negatives. Bro, you have 3 other vaccines that are not having this issue. Why are you backing Johnson & Johnson this much? Like, are you fucking kidding me? The evidence is there. This is why people don't want to get this vaccine.
Yeah. How many months has these vaccines been in circulation?
We'll say 8. We'll say November of last year.
Okay. 8 months. There have been 2 major issues with Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
1 linked to death.
This is 8 months later for the crappiest one to start showing some signs of issues. What are we going to find out in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years with these other vaccines, because it was rushed through and the government continues to put them out there? We already see that they're willing to push the Johnson & Johnson one, even though it has issues. And like you just reminded us, there are 3 other ones that don't have issues, but the government still wants to push Johnson & Johnson. So what else is out there that they're not telling us? The other thing, this shows how crappy we are, because they said that name how many times in that video?
Right.
So this shows that we don't even watch the own videos that we're putting on for the public.
What did he say? Guillain-Barré.
Guillain-Barré.
Do I know?
Guillain-Barré. And I should have known with the double L is usually a Y in Spanish.
Right.
But a lot of people do pronounce the double L as an L.
Okay, so we have Guillain-Barré syndrome. Again, this is something where, okay, you give it the first one. One death, okay, cool. We paused it. Nah. No, this is a situation where we're done. Johnson & Johnson, go back to the fucking chalkboard. You have had 8 months of just failure. Go back to the drawing board.
Or this is where the president and Congress and senators get together and say, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, we need to share information and forget about everybody worrying about being proprietary and getting their own little thing.
True.
When it comes to health, we should be sharing secrets.
I mean, legitimately, I have no understanding of why you would continue to let this happen, why you would continue, and then not only to let it continue, but why are you backing it still? As much as you say the benefits outweigh the negatives, you're talking about an autoimmune disease. This attacks your immune system that it's, let's be honest, supposed to build.
Yeah, and I missed the number. How many did they say?
Oh, Lord. I think they said 79 million. Are you talking about the doses?
No. How many cases have they?
Oh, I completely been blanking on where that was. So that's my bad. I know they said 79 million doses have been given. Here's the thing also that stood out to me in what he was saying. It's contracted after you're exposed to certain kind of influenza.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
so now they're giving you a drug that is interacting with other viruses.
Exactly. Writing is on the wall here, people. We need to, I mean, we can sit here and talk about the benefits of the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the, I forget what the other one was. But literally, there's no argument for me for this Johnson & Johnson vaccine. There's no benefit. I'm trying to figure out where the benefit is to outweigh the negative. Because I see a ton of negatives and no benefits. That's just me on that. It's beyond me on why they are backing this this one so much when they have 3 others that have shown at least, if not positive results, nothing negative.
Right.
Jesus, it's mind blowing. Okay. So here's the final story we got before our American Idiot of the Week. Texas Democrats are threatening to leave the state over voting on a voter rights bill. And we have a story from NBC News on this.
The battle over voting rights is once again taking center stage, with 2 Republican-backed voting bills moving rapidly through a special session of the state legislature. Democratic members of the Texas House are expected to bolt from Austin today in an effort to block the measures from advancing. NBCNews.com senior reporter Jane Tim joins us now. Jane, what more can you tell us about this expected move by Texas Democrats? All of it is a little confusing, especially when you consider this is a Republican-controlled legislature.
Absolutely. So Democrats don't have the votes in the Texas legislature to stop this in any way. In the last session, they used delay tactics and this brief walkout to stop the bill before the session ended at the expiration of the session. The governor, of course, called another special session, said, you know what, do that legislation right now. So their plan is to do this again. But this is not easy, and they risk arrest by fleeing the state. So what they're going to do, I'm told that at least 58 Texas House Democrats are flying to Washington, D.C., where they plan to spend 3 weeks waiting out the end of this special session. Now, as I said before, the Texas Constitution allows lawmakers to compel their absent peers to show up to work. So they can say you need to come back, which is why they have to go across state lines, where they believe that state troopers and the legendary Texas Rangers just don't have jurisdiction to bring them back. Allison?
So floor votes on these voting bills are expected as early as Tuesday in both the Texas House and the Senate. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen now, but President Biden is also expected to deliver a long-awaited speech on this very issue tomorrow. Any indication in terms of what we might hear from the president and whether or not what he has to say could make a difference in Texas and other states that are also trying to pass restrictive voting laws?
You know, it's clear that Texas Democrats believe that federal voting legislation is the only option for them to permanently stop this bill that they oppose so deeply. We know they're talking to the White House because they were at the White House meeting with Vice President Kamala Harris weeks ago after their first walkout. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see them in communication with the vice president as well as the president. I mean, I think also a fair amount of advocates feel like Joe Biden took a little bit of a back seat in the previous fight for federal voting rights legislation. But I think where you can expect to see Biden is taking a really strong stand on this. And Democrats feel like, you know what, we have some momentum, that if we can get ourselves to Washington, D.C., if we can paralyze the Texas legislature, we can have the president out there talking about the importance of voting rights. They're hoping they can turn the tides and make it possible for voting rights to have some federal legislation in Congress.
Hey, NBC News viewers.
Okay, let's talk about this here real quick. So, they did give me some more information on what's going on with this.
There has to be a specific number in-house for them to even vote.
Right.
I know that.
Let's be honest, Democrats are going to be outweighed by they were blunt when they said that the Democrats don't have the numbers to be able to defeat this. So here's my thing. While I may not necessarily agree with these controversial voter rights bills, what I have a problem with is
the childish tactics.
The question, are you actually representing your constituents?
Right.
If you do such a thing.
It's not going to go my way, so I'm just going to go over here.
So my thing is this. You get defeated on day one. Who's to say President Biden doesn't come in and defeat this before it becomes a problem in the next election?
Right.
Why are you risking being arrested and criminal charges being brought against you, which kind of sounds asinine to me, to be honest.
Not to mention, why are you risking possibly being voted out the next go-round? Right.
You would think that the vice president and the president would be telling them, don't do this. Just, we got this on the back end.
Right.
Y'all chill out. Like, this is a whole bunch of shit. Honestly, like, I'm going to let you go, and I'm just trying to process this right now. What we've heard.
Well, my thinking, I know they've got their rule that a specific percentage has to be in-house to vote or they can't vote. But are there not circumstances where that can be waived? And whoever is there to vote, even if they count the ones as nays, if there's still more yays than would have been nays, can they not pass it?
Yeah, I mean, you would think so. You would think that the governor would
some
do
kind of emergency program would be in place to do that.
Right. And you would think that Governor Abbott would be able to do something like that. Of course, you know, he called this special session after you know, they blocked at the first one. I have a hard time wrapping my head around the idea that this is the best course of action. Like, yes, you're taking a stand.
And I don't know what the issue is with all these bills that they're proposing in the first place. It remains to be equal. People have the same places to vote regardless.
So one thing I will say, just based upon what they outlined as far as this Texas specifically's voter thing that I saw, that I was like, it seems like they're being more restrictive on early voting, like they're restricting the hours a lot more. Don't I would like to see them open up voting hours a little bit more. Like, hey, if you're here between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., like it is on election day, then okay, cool, we're good to go. That should be how it is to me on every, even early voting. I did see that this is actually, though, opening back up Sunday voting, which I didn't know was closed. So I mean, while they're taking some things away, it sounds like they're adding another option. So I don't know where I feel this one went wrong. As far as the most controversial one, the Georgia voting rights law, I have not been able to read that. So
Well, it was like they're saying that candidates or people pushing certain agendas can't go and hand out water to people standing in line. What's wrong with that? Okay, that's fine. Somebody should not be trying to pick up last minute votes in the line as people are in line. Now they're allowing the workers in the voting building, just the ones taking votes that don't have an allegiance one way or the other, they can go hand out water. They're just saying, if you're a backer of this bill or if you're a Republican candidate, you can't go out and hand out water trying to say, hey, you should vote for me.
No campaigning within so many feet of the polling place.
Exactly.
It's federal law.
So I don't see why stuff like that is being, looked down on, because we've already got those things in place. A lot of people want to bring up the identification. Well, nobody really complained about identification laws being racist whenever it was put in place for alcohol or cigarettes.
Right.
But all of a sudden it's racist when it comes to voting.
Right. Which I think the biggest argument, which I wish we had Tolly on tonight to speak about this, because we talked about this before leading into the 2020, is I think the biggest issue is with that is a lot of people in underprivileged areas don't have as easy an access to get an ID, which I've told you guys before on this show multiple times. I think that, hey, here's your ID. You've proven that you are who you say you are. Here's your ID. It's absolutely free of charge. Here you go. And all you can do with that ID is vote or buy cigarettes or what have you. It's there to prove. I don't.
That's where I'm going to disagree with you, because cigarette sales and alcohol sales in those areas, I guarantee you, are pretty damn high, which means they've got IDs for those things.
True. Good point. That's
the point of them saying there's a liquor store on every corner in black neighborhoods tells you that there's a lot of IDs out there.
That's true. That's a good point. I remember actually one of the things, and I'm going to kind of, I guess, flip-flop a little bit on this, but one of the things I always laughed about is when I did work at a gas station, the people that would drive up in their cars, and then they'd be like, they try to get cigarettes, and I'd be like, okay, where I need to see your ID, and they'd be like, oh, I don't have my driver's license with me. You just drove. What are you doing driving without your driver's license?
Right.
It's one of those things. But no, I mean, if that's the argument, though, honestly, I don't think it would hurt to give out free IDs. Bingo.
Right.
No, that's an easy fix.
Right. Now, one of the things that I did see with the Georgia stuff was they're closing down some of the places that you can go turn in your I don't even know if it's the early voting stuff. They were closing some polls where you could go.
Now, depending on where they are, I guess, see a problem with that. I mean, even not necessarily depending where they are, I could see a problem with it being as far as like, hey, you're restricting where I can go turn in my ballot. Like, why are you doing that? I could see that.
The one thing that I did agree with, or I shouldn't say the one thing I agreed with, because I agreed with a lot of it. One of the things I agreed with was unsolicited early voting forms. No candidate should be mailing out 20 voting forms when it hasn't been requested, because you don't know whose hands are going to fall into, how you can prove any of that stuff. The whole point of the early voting is, I am this person, I would like a form. They send me one form, not they send 20 to my address.
I can't see a problem with that. I definitely wouldn't disagree with you there. Another one that I noticed on there was the drive-through. They're closing all drive-through locations for voting. Bro, as long as you can prove who you are, why are you caring that they're driving through to do their ballot? Hell, I'd make that a fucking mandate, because that shit would just make it easier. Like, hey, I don't have to leave my car to vote. I get to sit in my air conditioning. Cool.
Yeah, I don't know what the purpose for that was. I didn't get to see that one.
Right. They flashed it up there on the screen during the news story just to kind of, I guess, give the talking points of the bill. But, that's something that I'm like, bro, why would you want to restrict that? That would make it easier for people to go out and vote, which, I mean, according to Democrats, I will say their biggest thing is, well, Republicans don't want a high turnout, even though, one of the highest turnouts in presidential election history, actually probably the highest turnout before this last one, was President Trump's victory. So I always laugh when people say that Republicans hate high turnout, because it's proven wrong every time a Republican wins.
And I think it's funny whenever they try to make it about race.
Right.
I don't see how allowing people to use a drive-through to vote makes it more racially equal.
Where I could see the race comment coming in is like the one you brought up, where in Georgia they are closing. And that's why I asked you, hey, where are these locations? Because that's where I could see it coming into play. Like, hey, are we closing polling places in majority minority neighborhoods? Because yes, that would make it not as easy for somebody in that neighborhood unless they were extremely motivated to vote.
Right. That's where I would like to see maps based on where all this stuff is before I say one way or the other, yes, good, or no, it's bad.
Right, exactly. And that's, that is something that is interesting to me. That's probably the only place where I could say these laws are not blatantly, because I'm not sure where the locations are, but they could potentially have a racially motivated topic. That's the only place I could see, except for maybe, of course, people argue about the voter ID and how in some minority areas it's harder to get an ID and things of that nature. But we've talked about that already. Okay, American Idiot of the Week time. This week, my American Idiot will be Stephen A. Smith, who today on his nationally televised show, after everything that's happened over the past year and 2 months now, decided to tell the world that it is bad for the sport of baseball that their current biggest star and home run leader needs a translator to follow him wherever he goes. I mean, Pat McAfee said it best when I was watching him earlier. Dude, I don't care what language you speak. When I'm watching sports, all that matters is hits, dingers, and how fast you can pitch, and in this case, I'm blown away by this guy, because he is a pitcher who is leading the major leagues in home runs. That has never happened before. Yeah.
Very odd for a pitcher to have those kind of hitting numbers.
Sit back and enjoy the ride, Stephen A. You don't always have to be controversial. So that's why he's my American Idiot of the Week.
Yeah, and it's not like he speaks for a living.
Right, exactly.
He stands on a dirt pile and throws a ball. Why do you care about a translator after the fact?
Exactly. Like, bro, you're not out there cutting promos.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. And as far as mine goes, we're going to keep it with the racial tone. My American Idiot of the Week is Tanner Holt, who is a 22-year-old white Tennessee police officer who was knocked out after telling a black wedding guest at a wedding party that he didn't know that they allowed black people in the reception hall, and cracked other racial jokes in front of this black gentleman who, I guess, got to the point where he was tired of it.
I'm so glad that this happened.
The greatest thing is, I know it's the American Idiot of the Week, but this was actually a couple of weeks ago. Internal Affairs has gotten a hold of it and looked at it, and no charges have been filed, nor do they look like they're going to be filed.
Awesome.
So they're perfectly okay with this gentleman taking matters into his own hands and correcting this white idiot who felt that he could just run his mouth about this kind of stuff.
Hey, like I said in the group chat earlier, I just wish the guy would have had one of them twisted teas in his hand. I mean, this guy, the audacity, the set of nuts on this dude to think that he was going to get away with that.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that is crazy. Well,
I guess the overall deal is watch who you invite to your wedding party.
Right. Hey, I mean, once again, we've seen it so many times on social media, but 2020 and 2021 and all this George Floyd stuff has definitely shown you the true colors of a lot of people that did pretty good at hiding them.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's our show. So until next week, for the Manny Hispani, I am Money Mike, and we will see you guys next week.